You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you for joining me here on today's Weight Loss and Wellness Wednesday, where I want to share with you how the best way is to figure out what plan you should be following. Because I know that you've seen the top 20 books on Amazon, and probably if you're close to a bookstore, if there's any Barnes & Noble or any bookstores still left available, you'll see a huge rack of books and even the bestsellers of all the different types of diet plans, all the different types of wellness plans and cookbooks and everything under the sun. And a lot of times it's difficult to figure out what works or what works best. And the truth is that one plan may have worked well for one friend and another plan may have worked great for another. So how do you choose? And it's actually a lot easier than you would think. And so I want to share with you the exact recipe or secret to figuring that out. Because again, a lot of people don't go by this because they become so dogmatic on one path that they lose sight of the big picture. And so again, that's what I want to share with you today. But before we get to that one point, I think it's really important that you first crystallize what you're looking to achieve. And again, we talk about this a lot on our Motivation and Mindset Mondays, so I do hope you check out those shows. But what I would say is this, is first you need to know exactly what your goal is. A lot of people say like, oh, well, I should follow this. Well, follow this plan, but why should you follow it? Meaning, what is your goal? Is your goal to lose weight? Is your goal to get well? And if you say, okay, my goal is to get well, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to get well? Do you want more energy, or do you have something like leaky gut? And if you have leaky gut, well, now you can at least narrow it down. You can say, okay, well, I have leaky gut. And so that means I need to find some books or some articles at least on what I should do if I have leaky gut. But what I would say is first learn a little bit about it. Meaning, like, if you can, read a book or two on the subject or read a couple articles online. Again, that doesn't make you an expert. You don't know exactly what you need to do, but you at least need to know where to get started. You at least need a little bit of a basis point. So this is my next point, is that if you can, read multiple articles from multiple sources so that you get a little bit of differing opinions. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. A lot of people think like, oh, well, this person says this person says that. Again, this is getting to my point. That is not a bad thing. And then if possible, I would love you to read multiple different books by different authors, or at least audiobooks, or maybe even a couple podcasts. Now, the problem with podcasts and articles is that they just can't go deep enough. So what we have, unfortunately, a lot of health coaches, of course, not the health coaches listening to this show, but a lot of health coaches out there, a lot of people posted on Instagram and Facebook, all these different tips. And again, they're very well-meaning, but they don't go deep enough. And that's really not any fault of their own. The issue is that reading a couple 1,000-word blog post or even listening to a 10, 15-minute podcast, it gets you started, but it's not meant to be the entire plan. That's not possible. Even when I speak with someone for an hour in my practice, we do follow-ups. And the reason we do follow-ups is because you can't even get all the information you need to succeed in simply 60 minutes. I know we live in the fast-paced, fast results culture, but we need to go a little bit deep if we want to keep those results. Now, remember, you can follow a plan and get great results, but I'm all about keeping those results for life. That's how you stay satisfied. That's how you stay happy. So here's what I want you to do. Once you've read the multiple sources from different people, and again, I'm always recommending that you do that so you get a little different vantage point from different people. Here's what you're going to find, and here is the secret to success. It's not about one person has to have everything all right, okay? They don't have to be 100% correct. Very, very rare. Here's what you want to look for. You want to look for what's called the overlap. And I've actually given a few talks on this, and my talks have typically been between paleo and veganism, or someone being vegan and following a vegan-based diet. And I know being vegan is not really about a diet. It's about a lifestyle. It's about being, well, animal and really plant-based centric, meaning that it's not just about not eating meat or fish or any other type of living being, but it's also about treating the greater world with a lot more respect, which is really what I love. I think that's a beautiful way to live, is looking at the entire world that we live in as we're a part of it, and no one person, no one thing is more important than another. And again, I know that there's a lot of people trying to move in that direction, and I think that's absolutely, fantastic as well. I think there needs to be a little bit more kindness and acceptance from both sides, where a lot of people aren't ready to step in and become vegan, but they're working towards it. And so I hate when I see online a lot of people on Instagram, knocking down others where they're like, oh, I just moved from eating meat to just eating fish. And they're like, you're still killing fish. And, that's not the right attitude to take. This is a journey. And I doubt that any one person has just made it to the other side in a day or a week or maybe even a year or two. So again, it's more acceptant of everyone, and that includes other people's viewpoints, and knowing that everyone's doing the best they can with what they're currently given and where their current mindset is. But let's get back on track. So one of the things I spoke about is this thing called overlap, meaning that you have one person on the left side, one person on the right side. Typically the middle, like the vast majority, the 2.5% on the left and 2.5% on the right, that 95% in the middle, they both agree on it. Like, that's the amazing thing. But all we see difference-wise is the 2.5% and 2.5%. So let me give you just a quick summary of an hour talk that I've given many times. And this is on a healthy diet and nutrition. So we take people who are basically following a paleo-based diet. And let's say, okay, they're eating fish and meat, lots of vegetables, fruit, and anything like starches, like sweet potatoes, regular potatoes. They're eating all things, no grains, anything like that. And that's what they're doing. Now, the people on the paleo side who don't really know what they're doing, but they've just adopted the paleo-based mindset, they're eating meat at all three meals. They're having eggs and sausage for breakfast or bacon. And then for lunch, they're having a grass-fed burger. And then again, without the bun. Or they're doing a coconut bun, which is another story. And then for dinner, they're doing, let's say, like salmon or chicken or something like that. So, okay, that's one side of the paleo equation, but that's also not a healthy side of the paleo equation either, because that's not a real paleo diet. Paleolithic man certainly wasn't waking up to eggs and bacon or eggs and sausage in the morning. He or she was not eating a grass-fed burger at lunch and then sitting down to some, wild-caught salmon at night, I'm sure wrapped in bacon, for a lot of the staunch paleo people. That's not a real paleo diet. The real paleo people understand that meat or fish or something like that might be a once, maybe twice a day, and it would be about a handful of protein. Like, that's a smarter based logical jump from really what Paleolithic man may have been eating, hunting and gathering all day, and then having the one real protein based meal if they got anything that day, meaning like, again, I'm not a hunter, but if you went and tried to go into the woods, the likelihood that you catch anything with your bare hands or even a rock or a spear would be slim to none. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, the animals are not going to come around you. They fear you. That's just, you're not going to catch anything. It's very, very rare. Again, you can and you will, but much more rare. Now, I don't want to go down that path today. Now, on a vegan-based diet, when you say, okay, well, you're eating the same fruits and the vegetables and the tubers and maybe you're eating beans, things like that. Some people may not. But so the difference is, like, those diets are exactly the same. But the smart paleo-based people, their idea is they might have a handful of meat or fish per day. So when you look at that, a vegan-based diet, and again, I know I'm going to get hate from both sides of the equation, and that's why I'm always the person, like, that's why no one knows what to make of me in the health and fitness industry, because I'm not on one side, and I refuse to take one side, because what I do is my dedication is to you. My dedication is to our listeners, and so there is no one side. No one has it all right. I'm the integrator. I take the best from Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional medicine from, let's say, like Greece, from even Hawaiian-based medicine, which I've talked about before, old school traditional naturopathy, new school naturopathic medicine, and functional medicine, which is the best of conventional medicine as well. And I take the best of that. No one approach. No, I don't believe that. That's why I studied all over the world. And what I found was a integrated approach is simply the best way to go about it. So what I'm saying here today is this, is that really what we're talking about, those two diets, we're talking about a handful of protein per day. That's it. That's like legitimately it. So they can agree on 90, 95%, but that one handful a day is what's going to be, just from a non-subjective standpoint, that's the difference. Now, again, not talking about animals and eating animals or any type of that. That's a different equation. But I'm talking about simply diet-wise, very little difference between those two. So what does the overlap mean? The overlap means that you should be eating predominantly fruits, vegetables, healthy starches such as sweet potatoes or yams, and maybe doing some grains. Again, that wouldn't be paleo, or it can be vegan-based, but seeing if it works best for you, okay? So let me move on to a different example. Weight loss through exercise. A lot of coaches are saying, okay, you need to do high-intensity interval training, and that means 20 seconds on, 30 seconds on, a minute on, followed by a period of rest. Or they're saying Tabatas, which is 20 seconds on, a little bit less rest. But what they're really saying is interval training works for weight loss. Why does it work for weight loss? Well, it boosts metabolism. So whether you're saying that you should do Tabatas, or whether you're saying you should do, which means more work and less rest, or whether you're saying you should do a little bit less work and more rest for a traditional interval, which is like 30 seconds on, a minute or 2 minutes off, they're both saying intervals work for weight loss. So whether you choose a Tabata or whether you choose to do 30 seconds on and a minute or minute and a half off, really the overlap is that intervals work for weight loss. And what are they not saying? Well, they're, by excluding long distance running, they're saying, okay, long distance running will burn calories, there's no doubt about it. But in the long term, long distance endurance training is only burning calories and not boosting your metabolism for the long term. So meaning that, sure, you can burn calories that day, but high intensity interval training is what's going to boost that metabolism, better uptake glucose, change your body when you're not doing that specific workout. So again, the overlap isn't what type of interval is best. It's that interval training is best for weight loss in terms of exercise. Weight training counts as well. Whether you're doing push, pull, whatever it might be, some metabolic resistance training also helps with weight loss. Okay, let's move on to a couple more. What about leaky gut? Okay, well, leaky gut. Most people say that if you have leaky gut, you need to repair that gut wall. Now, here's where it differs. Some people say that you should use probiotics. Some people say that you should use bone broth. Some people say that you should only use soil-based probiotics, right? Like Prescript Assist. Some people say that you should do fermented vegetables only. So when you look at, or some people say you should do kefir or yogurt, any of these things. So all of them are saying this. You need some type of mechanism to repopulate the gut with good bacteria and to seal up the gut wall. And the sealing up the gut wall would go with the bone broth or the L-glutamine or any number of these things. So again, the difference is how they go about it, right? The probiotics, the bone broth, the yogurt, the kefir, the fermented vegetables, any number of things, or the probiotics. But what they're all saying is the same thing, is that there's some imbalance in the gut, maybe not enough good bacteria, and the gut wall needs to be repaired. And so again, everyone's saying the same thing. They're going about it in different ways. The problem, of course, with this is that a lot of people aren't saying, they're not asking why. And I'm going to talk about that towards the end, is that you need to always be asking why. And essentially with leaky gut is it will always be leaky if you haven't cleaned it up first. And a lot of times it means not probiotics in the beginning. It means wiping out the why. You know, when you look at that why, well, what is the why, which I'll talk about at the very end. Okay. But everyone's saying the same thing. So again, the overlap means this. The overlap is that the gut's imbalanced. The microbiome's imbalanced. You need to repair the flora, which is the bacteria. Need more good bacteria than bad bacteria, right? That's for sure. And then you need to close up those gaps, whether it is through bone broth, whether it is through fermented foods, or whether it is through nutritional supplements to help do the job, okay? Now, I do want to give you one more example, and that's with autoimmunity. So here's the thing. With autoimmunity, everyone's saying this, well, the immune system is not working properly, and it's attacking the joints in RA, the thyroid in Hashimoto's, the myelin sheath, the nervous system in MS, and a number of issues, right? So what we're looking at is they're saying there's something wrong with the immune system. The problem, and so how do we go about balancing it? Well, we can go about balancing it through an autoimmune paleo-based nutrition plan where we're eliminating grains. We might be cutting down on lectins. We are doing things like moderate exercise. We're using infrared sauna. So people are saying a lot of the same things, right? But what they're not talking about is the immune system isn't necessarily imbalanced. I should say it's not overactive, it's imbalanced. One side of the immune system isn't working as well as the other side, and one side is turned on too much. So this is where I want to pull things together now. So now you know that again, there could be a lot of different plans, but I simply want you to do this. I want you to ask yourself why. Right? I want you to ask yourself why. Here's the overlap. So again, with weight loss exercises, people are saying this interval is good, this interval is good. Whose interval is best? Well, intervals are good, right? That's the overlap. The overlap that most people are saying, 80%, 90% of people are saying intervals work for weight loss, right? For leaky gut, we need to do something to repair the gut. Probiotics, ferments, those types of things. Paleo versus vegan, like what's the best diet in the world? Well, the best diet in the world people keep pointing to is fruits and vegetables, predominantly vegetables, right? We are fruit and vegetable eaters. That's what we're supposed to be. 28 feet of intestinal tract. All this stuff about keto and 80% fat is wrong, and it will be proven wrong in the future. It can be used medicinally. I'm not saying that. Everything can be used medicinally, but for the long term, really bad, right? So now here's the thing. We have our overlap. We know what works. The majority of people are saying this. They might be coming at it from different angles, but they're saying this. That's how you know most likely that is right. Okay, that is right. The overlap. Not way to the left, not way to the right, but the overlap. Okay, here's the thing. You just have to keep asking yourself why. You need to keep peeling back the onion. When someone says you have an autoimmune disorder, you have to say, okay, why? Well, they say, okay, well, you have an overactive immune system. Let's say, okay, well, why do I have an overactive immune system? Here's the deal. We now know 90% of all autoimmune issues come from some type of leaky gut or intestinal permeability. So now you can say, okay, well, why do I have leaky gut? And then you can start to say, well, you have increased intestinal permeability. Okay, why? Well, you might have had too much alcohol, Advil, birth control, antibiotics, stress, poor food combining, any number of reasons. Just say, okay, well, I had that. I've stopped using them, but now how do I repair? Well, you could lab test. You could do an organic acids test, and you could say, do I have too much yeast? Do I have too much bacterial overgrowth? You could do a stool test. You could say, do I have H. pylori? Right? That's a big one. If you have improper stomach-based acid. And then the next one is you can say, do I have parasites? And if you have any of those, well, you need to wipe them out first. That's what a lot of leaky gut people don't tell you. So wipe out first. Take out the yeast. Take out the bacteria. Take out the C. diff. Take out the H. pylori. Take out the parasites. All of those things. And again, just please tune into previous Cabral concepts on that topic. Or if you don't want to run the organic acids test or stool test, you'll simply do the Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol. You'll do something, right? If you have autoimmune, you'll do the 21-day Dr. Ball detox, but you'll do something to start moving forward. So I could go on and on about this, but what I want you to keep in mind today is that you don't have to be confused. There will always be a way to the left, right? Keto. There will always be a way to the right, which would be like high carb, tons of grains, all that. But what's the overlap in the middle? The overlap in the middle for diet is always about vegetables. It really is. It's always about vegetables, and it's about low glycemic fruit, like berries, those types of things. We're humans. That's what we need. That's our predominant fuel source. And then, yes, there's protein, but people can argue over those things. Look for the overlap. With exercise, nobody's recommending long distance running. That's not appropriate for weight loss, even though you see it on TV. That's just for TV. You want to do your interval-based training. Some running is totally fine if you're in good biomechanical order, but weight training at least 2, maybe 3 times a week. You look at the overlap. So again, I want to keep it at that for today, but I also want your questions. If this didn't make sense, because this is a little bit of a rant for me, because I've see so much just debauchery online with people making all these wild recommendations. I just wanted to go on a little bit of a rant today, just tell you how I'm feeling, what I think about the state of the industry, is just let you know. I know it can be confusing, but when you see that the majority of people are kind of centered in on this, that's why I want you to focus on. Let me know if you have questions. Just go to stevencabral.com/Ask Cabral. I'm happy to answer those for you. Thank you, everyone. Please do feel free to share this show with anyone it could help. Take care. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.